So basically, this is what we were working on last week. I hope that it's upside down. Yeah, it was upside down, Yehudith. It's hopefully the right way around now. So we were working on this skull last week on the live stream, which was basically some Scraffito. So it was fired in the kiln, and I've applied another layer of glass to that. Another layer of paint to the glass. And I'm going to show you the method that I'm using for applying an extra layer of shading to this skull. We'll get into that in a second, just as we introduce more or welcome more people on board. Thank you for your patience. If you're back with me on the live stream, we normally live stream at about 8:30 here in the UK, UK time. And we live stream for about an hour on all things stained glass. And we basically talk about stained glass for this creative community. This creative community is an international community of fellow creatives. Many of you are new to glass. Many of you have an interest in learning about stained glass. Some of you have been on my courses here in my studio here in Leicestershire in the UK. Others are doing my online courses. I do enamel painting courses and glass painting courses. And I'm really sort of committed to helping you guys to learn all about this wonderful world of stained glass. So yeah, today we got off to a ropey start and our gremlins were playing up. Sam Myers, hi Sam here from the USA. Hi Sam, it's great that you're with us. I hope that we can keep our live stream going. It is now 9:25 in the UK, and we're a good hour second. I've also got a video to show you of Petri Anderson. Now, Petri Anderson is a fantastic glass artist here in the UK who also teaches glass painting, and he was teaching glass painting up in the north of England this weekend to I think 7 students, some people from New Zealand and some people from the UK, doing an amazing job. And on his way back down on Monday, he decided to drop into the studio and he brought a brand new panel. JJ says, just found you about 1 minute ago. Yay, here from the USA. JJ, welcome on board. It's fabulous that you're here. If you don't know JJ, we've had real problems today getting on live stream. We kind of had real gremlins in the system, but it seems that everything is working now and our audio is working and hopefully our music and everything is in place. So yeah, we've got a video today to show you on Petri's new stained glass panel. He brought his stained glass panel into the studio and he's really devised a new set of techniques that he kind of experimented on for this panel. So he said, why don't we film it? Why don't we do a little demonstration, which will be really interesting to show other people. So I'm going to show you this demonstration in a second. It's in this format, this shorts feed format. I'll also release it on my YouTube channel later in landscape format, which is the kind of, you know, the normal landscape format that you watch most YouTube videos on. But today we're live streaming on this vertical format, which is the way that we do our I miss all the gremlins, says JJ. Yeah, I don't, to be honest, JJ. I do not miss them one little bit. I kind of feel my computer might be on the way out because it seems to be creating problems all the time with getting onto the internet. And if we do go off the internet, if we suddenly disappear, it's because my computer decided to not play ball. So Anne Simon says, hello from sunny Ottawa in Canada. Hello, Anne. Welcome on board. It's great you're with us today. Magali, everything is working fine. That's so good to hear, Magali. Welcome to you. Welcome to one and all as you join us today. So having a look at this skull here, this was a Scraffito technique that we worked with last live stream last Tuesday. And we basically had a blank sheet of glass, which I painted with black glass paint, which is a tracing black paint with a little bit of gum arabic and water, and I allowed it to dry, and then we had these kind of marks on the glass. I then traced the design, and I'll show you what the design looks like. This was the design that we traced through. Can you see this here in chat? So this was the artwork that I originally generated, which we're going to create in glass. This is actually just a paper design at the moment. So we traced this design out using white carbon paper, and if you have a look on the live stream from last week, I talk a lot about with the white carbon paper, which is an absolute godsend if you are unsure about tracing directly onto glass, if you don't want to do it freehand. You can use tracing paper. It's called white carbon paper, and it's available online on places like Amazon, etc. And it allows you to trace over a design like this through the carbon paper onto your black piece of glass or your black painted glass, and that creates an outline which you can then continue to use the Scraffito technique on. So that's what I did last week on the stream, and created this design, which is on a single piece of glass. As you can see here, it's a very thin piece of glass. It's just like a 2mm bit of glass, but we scratched all the details out and then popped it into the kiln the following day and fired it. Now, if you're not sure about stained glass, or you don't know anything about stained glass, you have to fire your paints in a kiln at a high temperature. Hi Janice, back online. Glad you could join us again. Welcome. Hopefully we're in for round 2. Yeah, if you don't know much about stained glass painting, basically we have glass paints which are ground down iron oxide. Think about it as rust, just ground down to a fine powder mixed up with some other chemicals that are, and glass frit and glass powder, etc. And it's mixed up with water and gum arabic, or it's mixed up sometimes with oils like clove oil or lavender oil, or vinegars sometimes as well, and painted onto the glass, and it's fired in the kiln. So that then makes the paint permanent. So this Scraffito design was fired in the kiln, and it is permanent. So I've added another layer of shading to this design. So this second shading layer hasn't been fired in. It was just sort of drawn in freehand, and I'm going to go through with you some of the techniques that I use to create my shading. So there's a really nice method of creating shading using an oil. So it's like an oil shaded layer. Now, the traditional way of using oil shading with stained glass painting is to use a lavender oil or perhaps a clove oil to mix with your paint to create a lovely paint consistency. Why would you use an oil? Well, the reason you would use oil to mix your paint with rather than water and gum arabic is that you want the paint to stay wet for longer, not to dry out too quickly. If you mix your paints with traditionally with water and gum arabic, the paint dries out pretty quickly and you can't move the paint around the surface of the glass very easily at all. But when you mix your paints with an oil, it stays wet for a lot longer. And in doing so, it means you can push the paint around. So the oil that I'm using is this oil here, which is a great oil. It's called Rouge oils. Now, it is completely misnamed. It's actually not an oil at all. It is a water-soluble plant extract. It's based on a cellulose ether and a propanol. So it's a little bit like propylene glycol, if you're familiar with propylene glycol, and it behaves like an oil. It's got the gloopy consistency of an oil, and it stays wet and it keeps the paint wet for longer. So this is what we use on our masterclasses here in the studio when I'm teaching glass painting. It's also on my online course, my Glass Painting 101 course, which you can find on my website. This is a great medium. And you just need to use a very small amount of it. It's a clear liquid, and you mix it with your paints, and it allows the paints to be pushed around the surface of the glass for a lot longer without drying out. So I'm just making sure that I'm still online. Yeah, still online. I'm so nervous about being online or losing connection with you guys today, but it seems like the connection is still here. My computer, as I say, is playing up. So this Rouge oil, I have mixed it with a little bit of tracing black. So if you have a look at this little pot here, this is my tracing black, which I've mixed up already with a little bit of the Rouge oil medium. And it mixes up to a really nice consistency. I'm going to put my gloves on because I'm going to be painting in a second. And I don't want to get paint onto my skin. Nowadays, what we're recommending is that whenever we're working with paints, and they're lead-based paints. A lot of these glass paints are toxic lead-based paints, that we wear gloves so that we don't have the paint sitting on our skin for too long a period of time. We don't really want that to happen, so we're wearing gloves, as you can see here. So this paint is mixed up with the Roush oil medium, and you can see it's nice and gloopy, and it's stayed in this kind of malleable consistency, and it will stay like this for quite a long period of time, and it allows us to paint this type of paint onto the glass surface without the paint drying out. So it allows us to create shadows. So I'm going to show you what I mean before I wipe some of the paint off of this and repaint it for you. So let's just get an ordinary piece of glass. So here's a little bit of clear float glass. I'm going to clean it with a cloth, and so I've got some paper towels here and a little bit of glass cleaner. We always clean our glass before we paint on it, because there's always grease on the glass. Even if the glass looks nice and clean, there's always grease on the surface of the glass. So we give the glass a good clean. The best thing to clean glass is, in actual fact, vinegar. Vinegar is by far the best way to clean glass. But we're using a little bit of commercial glass cleaner at the moment to get it nice and clean. So our glass is clean, as you can see here, hopefully. Let's just move it into position so the camera sees it properly. So we're mixing up our paints, and we're adding a little bit of water. So we have water here and our paintbrush, and we're adding that to our paint mixture, which has got the oil in it, and we're applying it to the glass. And I'll just show you the characteristics of this particular paint. You can see that it's quite translucent, it's quite transparent. It's not a really dense paint, and we're using this for shading, so it's not going to be really black. It's going to be a shaded layer. So I'm using a small badger brush. Can you see this badger brush here? Very small little badger brush, and it allows us to move the paint around the surface like this. Can you see that? It moves around freely, and this paint will not dry out for quite a long period of time because it's got the Roush oil medium in it, and it allows us to create shading, light and shading areas, light and shading areas in the glass. So if we add a little bit more water to this, just to make it a little bit more transparent and a little bit more movable, you can build the shadows up into areas, so you can move the paint across the glass surface into darker areas and lighter areas like this. So I've got say a darker area here and a lighter area there. It's a little bit of a technique that you have to work at to develop, but because the paint stays wet, you can mess around with it for a long period of time, and you can go from light areas of paint through to dark areas of paint. If I was doing this with, say, for example, water and gum arabic, in order to create a graduation in tone, what I'd have to do is stipple the paint. I'd put little pinpricks into, hey Vicky, yeah, I'm back on again. Welcome to the live stream version 2. Gramp says, I've found that the best thing to use for cleaning glass is a cloth that's been used before to take up wet paint and then allow it to dry. Sounds strange, but it works. I believe you, yeah. I think actually dried paint, if you put a really thin layer of paint, oops a daisy, I hit the microphone. If you put a really thin layer of paint over the surface of the glass, let that dry and then wipe that off. That also has the same effect as using a cloth that's had paint in it before. I think the paint is quite a good kind of cleaner. It's kind of slightly abrasive, and it does degrease glass very easily. But yeah, we're using a little bit of glass cleaner today. So if I was mixing this paint with water and gum arabic, the only way I'd be able to graduate the tone really is by stippling it, and that's creating little pinpricks in the surface of the paint to let light through. But when you use an oil, the paint stays wet and it allows you to move the paint around all over the place. So let's show you what I mean in practice. If we get our skull back, we can create a little bit of added shadows to this particular image. So what we're going to do is, you can see there's a whole lot of shadows on here just now, but we can take this off and remove a large portion of it. So what we're getting back to is basically the Scraffito image with no extra shading on there at all. Let's just clean that last bit up. So this is what we ended up with last week on the live stream, just a Scraffito image on its own with no extra shading. Gonna give this a little bit more of a clean. Welcome on board if you're joining us on the live stream, on the chat. Ask any questions you like, guys, in the chat. I'll do my very best to answer them today. We're gonna go on for another 45 minutes or so. I've got a video to show you guys as well of Petri Anderson, who's a fantastic glass artist, and that'll come up a little bit later on this episode. But we're just going to do a little bit of shading just now, just to show you what I mean in terms of how to create beautiful graduated tones in Scraffito using an oil-based paint. Okay, got our glass pretty clean. So we've mixed our paint up already, and we're going to start applying a little bit of paint to some areas. So getting my small flat brush, can you see this little flat brush here, and our paint. And basically what we do is we can just start to paint in the areas that we want our shading to be in. So having a look at our artwork, you can see there's quite a lot of shading around this side of the skull and into the cheekbones area here, and round the eye socket there's a bit of shadow. So let's add a little bit of shadows around these areas here using our oil. So again, as you can see, it's a transparent half-tone grey. It's not a completely dark color at all. We're adding a little bit of shading in here, and in a second I'm going to begin to badger it down to show you how easy it is to create interesting shadows with an oil-based paint. Again, a little bit of detail around here, around the eye socket. Just adding some more oils to this. I hope the camera's picking that up. So it looks a bit rough at the moment, but bear with me. It's going to be smoothed out in 1 second. So we've got, very generally speaking, some of our background areas in there. Let's just do a little bit of the teeth as well. So at the moment I'm just putting in very general kind of marks around where I want the shadows to be. Now I'm going to use my badger brush to then begin to feather this shadows, so I can then push the paint around into areas and actually make it an even softer finish, so that it is not at all blotchy. It's quite soft and controlled. Now what you find is, because the paint is, can you see they're beginning to create some shadows now? Marianne, welcome to the live stream. Hi, glad to catch the live stream this week. Yes, Marianne, you've caught the live stream. Welcome on board. We're running a little bit later than usual, which I won't go into again, but basically you can see, can you see we're beginning to create shading and tones and variations in tones with this oil. So the lovely thing with this oil is, as I say, it stays wet for quite a long period of time. Let's have a look at our skull again. So we're going to create some areas of shading around the nose. Around this area here and up this side. And then using our badger brush, now if there's an area, for example, that is just too dark and you're not happy with how dark it is, it's very easy to alter it. All we need to do is use something like a Q-tip. Let me just grab one just now and I'll show you what I mean. So these little Q-tips are really useful. Can you see here? So if, for example, we want to kind of lighten an area, because the paint stays wet for a long period of time, you can just begin to lift the paint away from the areas that you don't want to remain dark. So let's have a look at this area around the skull. We want this to be a little bit lighter around here. So again, I'm just lifting the areas away that I don't want the oils to remain in place with. And you can relax and take your time over this because the oils stay wet for a lot longer. So it's a really good technique, and it's worth spending the time getting to know how to work with the oils, because it does take a bit of while to get used to, and it's a little bit like painting with an oil slick. You know, it does move around a lot and it does move all over the place. So practice makes perfect, like everything in life. But you can see I'm beginning to create some shadows here on the skull, and you can tone it down or add to it if you want to kind of create highlights and lowlights. And what I would do is I would just spend another half an hour or so working with this oil glaze to create a variety of different shading tones, and then that would get popped back into the kiln. So I'll continue with this after the stream has finished, but you get the impression, hopefully, of how useful it is to use an oil glaze if you are wanting to create a nice graduated shading tone for flesh tones, for example, or shadows are on the face or somewhere where you don't actually necessarily want to create a stippled effect. Using an oil glaze is going to be really, really useful. So this is a method that I'm going to continue with, and will, after the stream is finished, maybe tomorrow or the day afterwards, I will finish putting this second shading layer on, and again fire it in the kiln before we start colorizing the image, because I really am looking forward to being able to show you what enamels do to what enamels can bring to the party, because enamels are able to really add a huge amount of value to whatever it is that you're painting. Yehudith says, I tried this week but did sort of gild from glass too much oil. So I'm sorry, Yehudith, I don't quite understand that that message that you put in chat. Are you working with oils at the moment? Have you been able to work with oils in your painting tests? Do let me know in chat. Oils, as I say, are really good to work with if you get the Reusch oil medium. Once again, I'll show you guys on stream what it is. It is the Reusch oil medium. It is a water-based oil. You can thin it down with water and you can add it to your paint, and it keeps the paint nice and wet. It doesn't dry out too quickly, and it allows you to push the paint around and create lots of different effects. So yesterday we had a wonderful visit from Petri Anderson, who is a fellow glass artist. He was teaching glass painting up in the north of England this weekend with Lizzie, who runs a stained glass studio called Eden Glass. And I think Petri was teaching up to 7 people some glass painting techniques. He is a master glass painter, and I think the students were very lucky to get time with him because he's he's doing a lot of his own projects as well. So he was working to help everybody learn how to do portrait painting on glass. And he called me and said, look, I'm coming back down south on Monday. I'm coming down past your studio. Can I pop in and say hello? So he did. And he said, look, why don't we create a little video together? I've got a new panel that I've created some new techniques with. And would it be good to kind of film it and do a demonstration? And I thought, yeah, that's a great idea. That's a great suggestion. So we basically got the panel out on the light table, and we got some paints together, and Petri did this amazing demonstration that I'm going to show you guys now of a new painting technique that he's devised to create the most amazing dappled light effects, as if light is passing through leaves in a forest. That dappled light that you get when light passes through leaves, very difficult to reproduce if you're just painting it, but he has devised a new technique for creating a dappled effect, which I'll run the video and I'll show you what I mean, but it basically involves basically involves fixative and other materials which normally don't go with glass painting, but he's played around with and experimented with different materials to create different mark making techniques on glass. Jerry Z says hello from West Georgia, USA. Hello, Jerry. Welcome to the live stream today. It's fantastic that you're joining us. A channel member, along with Maria M, another channel member, and Janice, again, a channel member. It is wonderful. Vicky Graham, all my channel members are joining the stream as well. It's great that you're part of the channel and you've joined the channel to support the work that we're doing here. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. It's really appreciated. Let me run this video for you guys now. So this is Petri Anderson, and hopefully we're going to get some sound. Do tell me in the chat if you can hear the sound, because when I play the video I can't hear the sound myself, but hopefully you guys will be able to hear the sound. So let's run it now, and do tell me in a second whether you can hear sound or not. Petri is joining us today in the studio. Petri, you've come down from a teaching weekend up north, and you've brought a panel with you today. Tell us a little bit about this panel.
Well, this is a panel I made just a few weeks ago. It's called Childhood Dream, and it's there's no particular allegory behind it. It's just some imagery which came into my mind, and it's the thinking behind it really was to do something which would appeal to children and excite children about stained glass, because we need to see the next generation of stained glass artists coming through. So this is sort of my minuscule attempt to towards that end. But yeah, it's a little lad riding his scorpion through an enchanted forest, and which little child wouldn't like to ride their scorpion through a forest?
Oh my goodness, I wish I had a scorpion when I was a kid that size. It beats a bike any day of the week.
Absolutely. Some new techniques in this, just experimental techniques, which worked out quite well, which I thought might be of interest to folk.
Yeah.
So this area here, where we've got these slightly autumnal, change of season oak trees, I did those by using a vinegar mat, and while the matting was still wet, I sprinkled sea salt on with a little salt grinder, and as it dries, you get this lovely little sort of dappled light effect, which works quite well for forest trees. So
fantastic.
I thought I'd give it a little demonstration.
Yeah, please do.
Of how it works.
Please do.
So this is literally just vinegar and glass paint. I've used a mixture of a 50-50 mix of Vista Brown and black. I just find it gives a nice warm black. A lot of it's going to get, you can't really see any colour that would come through anyway because I'm quite dark glass.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just my go-to mix for paint. There's no gum arabic there. It's literally just the vinegar.
Yep.
And the glass paint.
Do you ever put any gum arabic in with your vinegar mixtures or not?
No, I only use gum arabic with water.
With water, yeah.
Yeah. So it goes on quite
quite densely.
Quite thick, yeah.
Yeah.
The badgering's not, you don't have to be too precise because it's going to get all muddled with the salt. We just sprinkle some salt on.
So this is sea salt.
Yeah, from a grinder.
Yeah.
So I guess the grains come through somewhere between 1 millimetre and 2 millimetre. Quite coarse.
Look close to see how. So it's sort of quite sparsely. It's not covering the entire space. There's gaps between each granule of salt. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And the nice thing about salt is it absorbs moisture.
Yes.
So it's not just dropping something on the glass, on the wet paint. You're actually dropping something which will take moisture out of the paint, and it creates a nice effect when it's dry.
Yeah.
So we just leave that to dry for a bit. So this is just water in the pot here.
Yes.
So there's vinegar in the paint and water in the pot, just to dilute it a bit further.
Yeah.
You really don't need much salt. It doesn't take much grinding. So here on the trees, where I've got highlights, I just did a little bit of extra picking out with a stick, just random patterns, so that we're sort of getting a sense of the light part of the dappling where we want it at the top of the canopy work, and a bit darker in other places.
Yeah.
So I'll just pick a few of those out. And then you just need to rub the salt off. So the little picked out lines, they sort of blur in with the salt, where the salt grains are gone.
Do you quite often use the fleshy part of your fingers or your palm of your hand to rub back paint?
If I'm doing something a bit more refined, like a face, if I'm trying to, say, recreate a heat and butter and bane type of paint texture with little pores that appear in the paint, then
Yes.
I use the ball of my hand.
Yes.
But for something like this, yeah, a finger will do. You don't get a very even removal of paint with your finger. You get a much more even removal with this part of your hand.
Yes.
But an even texture isn't really that important here.
That's really nice and an unusual texture. If I just saw that, I wouldn't necessarily know how that was created.
Yeah. Well, it's just something I thought I'd give it a go, and it seemed to work. So, yeah. And then on the second paint, once that's fired, you can add some deeper tones where you want them. Yeah, so you get a sense of how that goes on a lighter matte. And you can't really see where the scratching is. You just get a sense that there's more of a highlight here and more of a highlight here.
Yes.
It all sort of blends together. But then I did a second technique to further enhance the sense of a dappled light coming through trees.
Yes.
By using stain on the back. And there on the wet stain, I gave it a squirt with this fixative.
Wow.
And that just gives well, I'll demonstrate it, a real dappled stain effect, which again looks quite nice for autumnal leaves or leaves on the turn. And
have you used fixative before with your painted work?
No, this is the first time.
Wow.
So it's all experimental, just having a go to see what would work on this panel. A lot of my autonomous panels, I do try out new things, and some are successful, some aren't. But that's the nice thing about glass; you can rub it off if it doesn't work. You know.
Yeah.
You can have a go, be bold.
Well, that's the thing. Sometimes happy accidents are the best discoveries, aren't they? When you just kind of play with paint, mark making, see what happens.
Absolutely, and mistakes as well. It might be a mistake on that particular project, but you know, if you lodge it in your mind, that's something untoward happened. You can then utilise that in another application or another panel, as long as you, just recognise that something didn't quite go the way you thought it would. You know, there's opportunities in the future to use that.
So what other
work.
kind of techniques do you use to create marks? Do you use things like feathers, for example, or sponges?
I've got a roller, like one of those small mini rollers that I use for radiators, and I wrap cling film around that, and if you roll that very lightly over wet paint, you get this lovely crinkled effect.
Interesting.
And I've used bubble wrap as well in the past, just dabbing bubble wrap on wet paints.
Yes.
And that gives a nice dotty effect as well.
Yeah.
And it changes completely when you start rubbing it away with your finger. So, you know, left on its own, it's nice, but then you can also tweak it a bit by abrading it with your hand or with some brushes.
So do you have a go-to stain, Petri, that you use for the majority of your work?
I've got several stains. It really depends on the colour I'm going for,
Yes.
and the glass I'm using as well. I find that often the blue flash glasses don't seem to take the stain quite as well as other flash glasses. I don't quite understand why.
Yes. And you apply the stain on the glass side rather than the flash side, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I always paint on the flash side and stain on the back.
And when you apply stain, do you allow the stain to dry for 24 hours before it goes into the kiln, or does it just go in wet?
I don't find it needs 24 hours. You can sort of see when it changes colour and it's dry.
Yes.
Just because I use water-based, I don't use oils.
Yes.
So it dries fairly quickly. Just give it the lightest of badges because I want to keep it quite wet. I don't want, sometimes when you over badger things, it dries it out as well.
Yes.
But I want a nice amount of moisture left, and it's just the tiniest little burst, like that.
Wow, again, that is a very unusual texture that I wouldn't immediately know how that was achieved if I hadn't seen you do it.
Now I've not tried this with paint. You might get some nice effects with paint as well, but I've not really gone down that route.
And have you tried other solvents or vinegars or?
I've spritzed vinegar just with a brush before now, and that gives some nice sort of spidery effects.
Yes.
I quite like that.
Yeah. I find that spider effect, yeah, you get that with methylated spirits and vinegar and ethanol. But this is a completely different effect where you're not getting the kind of spidery legs. No,
and it's a bit more controlled. You know, there is a bit of variation in size of the splashes, but you know, for tree dappled light, it's a good tight texture.
So this area here, I can see these lovely kind of autumnal colours happening here. So what is this? Is this stain here, or how are you getting that kind of change in hue?
Well, it's a flash turquoise piece of glass, and actually it's a flash blue piece of glass, this one. And I've etched it away to different degrees in different areas, so you get quite a mixture of blues. Then I've stained the back to turn the blues into greens, and I've used various stains, mix the stains up as well, so you get even more variety. And these little discrete areas where it's almost like a brownie orange, that's my wire wool mix dissolved in vinegar, and that we fire at paint temperature. And I've stained the back. Just gives more variety. Turn the blues into greens, and I've used various stains.
It's incredible to think that this is a blue flash glass, because there's no hint of blue in here at all.
Where it's you have to really almost like a brownie orange. A tiny bit of blue. That's my wire wool mix dissolved in vinegar, and that we fire at paint temperature. The actual blue which I've used is I've stained the back. Just gives more variety. Turn the blues into greens, and I've used various stains.
It's incredible.
Loose blue. I think they call it denim blue. It's not like the cobalt blue. Tiny bit of blue. That's my much brighter blue.
Yeah. That's a very strong kind of navy cobalt blue, isn't it?
Yeah.
So will you be showing this panel anywhere? Are you planning on doing any more shows? Because you had a one-man show earlier on in the year or last year now at Ely Cathedral.
Yeah, I would love to. I haven't really thought about that yet. I'll probably be keen to get a few pieces together, and then look for a venue maybe, or see if someone's interested in displaying them. because I think a lot of people have seen most of that previous generation of woodland scenes. So it'd be nice to get some new things out there. But I'm still making them at the moment.
Fantastic. Petri, this has been wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing this with us today. Those techniques are really lovely, and I think we'll all be experimenting with them, getting our fixative sprays out to try and recreate those lovely textures in paint.
Wonderful. Thank you.
An amazing piece of work. I hope you agree. Really kind of nice to see it up close. And Petri has just completed it in the last week or so, and these new techniques he was really developing to create this lovely mottled, dappled light, using, you know, the materials that you saw, things like glass fixatives, to create a really interesting kind of effect, and using ground salt. Ground salt can be used and is used in lots of different kind of textural effects on things like watercolors, etc. And I have used it on glass painting myself as well. But yeah, it's just really nice to see that in combination to create these finished dappled effects. So mark making is a really lovely kind of creative way of controlling the light that comes through the glass. So whether you're painting with colored glass, these rich colors in the panels that Petri was using for that particular piece of work, or the clear glass, you know, if you're just using enamels and things like that, you can still create lots of amazing textures and textural effects, you know, using these different mark making techniques, whether it is, you know, fixatives, or whether it is salt, whether it is an astringent like a methylated spirits, for example, or an ethanol alcohol, or even glass cleaner sprayed on wet glass. You can create some amazing effects. And yeah, the effects that we were looking at earlier on in the screen in the stream today, which includes this skull head, is using oils. So you can add oils to the paint as well. So hopefully you're getting the message loud and clear that glass paint is an incredibly flexible medium, and it's a great material for mark making on glass, and it depends how you mix it, what you mix it with, imparts different characteristics to the paint and different characteristics to how it transmits light through the membrane of glass. So that's just a little whistle-stop tour over the last hour or so, showing you some of the different ways that I use and Petri uses to create marks on glass, taking the traditional techniques of glass painting, which are centuries old, and bringing them up to the 21st century by adding new techniques like fixatives from a can, or ground down salt from a salt shaker. You know, there's lots and lots of different ways to create marks on glass, and so hopefully that's inspired you guys along the way. I do apologize again for the delay that we had earlier on this evening with the live stream. It seems to be working and stabilizing itself at the moment. I have no idea what happened earlier on, but we had real issues with sound looping and or no sound at all. But our internet has held up for this second attempt at a live stream today, so thank you guys so much for sticking with me and sticking as part of the live stream. We'll spend another few minutes together. Do you have any questions in chat? I'm really happy to answer your questions. I noticed that some of you were asking questions earlier on in the stream, and I may well not have answered them for you, so please type in the questions again. I'll do my best in the next couple of minutes to answer your questions while we're live on the stream. Gramps says, that's a staggeringly detailed piece of work. It is indeed, Gramps. It's a wonderful piece of work. Amazing. Anne says, so creative. Double vision again. Yes, he is amazing. Errol Holt says, most inspiring. Thank you. You're very welcome, Errol. I did get your message earlier on today. Hopefully you saw my reply. You're working your way through the glass painting masterclass online, Glass Painting 101. And you were asking about how to create certain effects with a portrait. And Be interesting to get your feedback, Earl, on how that's developing with some of the tips and tricks that I suggested to you in response to your question earlier on today. Looking forward to seeing how you develop your glass painting techniques along with everybody else who is working their way through the online course. See the big thumbs up from Earl. That's good news, Earl. Yeah, keep in touch. Let me know how you're developing your own techniques, the things that you're challenged by, the things that you find are a revelation, things that you're excited by, and things that you want still to learn. I'm here to try and help you as much as I possibly can. Susanna FP says, yes, it was about the skull. You can mix the paint and use straight away, or does it need to rest for a bit before you use it? Susanna, that's a great question. You don't need to rest the paint if you're using it with the Reusch oil medium. You can use it basically straight away. You're correct to say that some paints do need to be rested for a while, specifically the dipping pen ink that is made with clove oil and lavender oil. When you mix it up in a container, it has to be mixed and set aside for at least 24 hours before you can use it so that the pigment infuses into the oil. But when you're using this water-based oil, this Reusch oil medium, you can basically mix up the paint and use it straight away. Magali says, thank you for sharing your craft. Magali, you're very welcome. Thank you for being part of the creative community and joining us on the stream today. Guys, I really do hope that we get rid of the gremlins between now and next Tuesday. We're planning on doing another live stream at 8:30 UK time. I do hope I've sorted out the problems by then, but I seem to have something in the system that is causing me to have a little bit less confidence than I might normally have about this computer working in live time. I'll have to look into it and hopefully we can sort it out. This coming weekend, I'm at a conference down in Canterbury. The Icon Stained Glass Conference is an international conference of speakers talking about stained glass conservation and all the issues that are facing studios, professional glass conservators working throughout the world today. I'm one of the speakers giving a paper along with Petri, who you saw earlier on the video tonight. Petri and I are doing a two-hander cooperative kind of talk where we're giving a paper together talking about how we are seeking to reuse stained glass from redundant churches. There are a lot of churches here in the UK that are closing and that are getting sold off to property developers, and the property developers don't always want the stained glass to be part of the deal, so they get rid of the glass and they sell it on the open market, or if we're very lucky, they give it to us at the stained glass repository. So we look after the glass and we try and rehouse it in new places. So we'll be giving a paper all about that this weekend, this Friday and this Saturday. And you know, it's a big crowd of people coming from all over Europe, speakers from all over the world coming to give papers as well. So really excited to be doing that and doing it with Petri. So I will talk to you guys next week, next Tuesday, 8:30. God willing. Let's hope the gremlins stay away. Thank you so much for being part of the stream today. Yehudith says, you fire at a high temperature. Well, the paint, all the paint, Yehudith, that we use for stained glass making is fired at about 650 degrees centigrade, which is about 1202 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's not as high a temperature as, for example, your slumped glass or your fused glass or your Fritz, etc. They're fired at a much higher temperature, 800 degrees or so centigrade. Petri, you're on the stream. Hey Petri, welcome on board. Yes, I don't know if you managed to get to see the video that I showed earlier on, but we will show it again. It's in landscape format, which is the wider format, which I'll show on my main YouTube channel. Later on, I'll also put it up on this format here, which is the upright format, the shorts feed format, and we'll try and put that maybe on Facebook and on Instagram so that more people get to share with your beautiful techniques and your demonstrations, which was fantastic, Petri. It was just great that you were able to share time with me yesterday and show us all these amazing techniques that you're working with for your new painted pieces. Cheers, Vicky. Cheers to Petri. Your work is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. And Petri and I will be in Canterbury this coming weekend. Thank you all so much for joining us on the stream today. And I really look forward to joining you again next Tuesday at 8:30. Bye for now, guys. Bye for now.